You're listening to the Multiverse Fan Cast, proud member of the Misfit Faction Media Network.
All right, then. On with the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Multiverse Fan Cast. If you're listening to us on the go, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and our website, themisfitfaction.com. There you can find links to all of our shows, including the Multiverse Fan Cast, Cinematic Adventures, and our brand new show, MF Uncensored. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Paul. With me in the studio today is Ronnie. Ronnie, how are you today?
I'm doing amazing. How are you doing?
Spectacular, dummy. From Cinematic Adventures and from my heart, Sean. Sean, how are you today?
Oh, I'm great as always.
I
don't have a Spider-Man reference there. I'm sorry.
It's uncanny. And traveling via Zoom, or interviewing via Zoom, because he's not actually traveling through the computer yet, interviewing via Zoom is Rob. Rob, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing all right. I am zooming in from sunny Tampa, Florida, where it is 80 degrees and my toes were in the sand just an hour ago.
Oh, just don't slip on any rocks, please. So if there's any sort of delay or anything like that, it's just because via Zoom sometimes.
It's not my brain.
It's not Rob's brain. But we are here. We are so excited, super excited, and I can't even begin to put into words the process that it came to for this movie to actually.
Before we get started, Rob, do you have a way home?
You mean like like after the show?
Yeah.
Is that an offer, Ronnie?
No, he made a joke about the. It was a joke about the movie title. It's gonna be a long.
Stupid spider puns.
It's gonna be a long episode, but yes,
I have 8 of them.
Oh my god.
He's got them written down, I'm sure.
I'm gonna throw up. Oh wow. But yes, we are finally talking Spider-Man No Way Home. And we are going to break it up into 2 parts as per usual. The first 10-15 minutes is going to be non-spoiler. So if you guys have not seen the movie, you'll just get our initial thoughts on it without spoiling anything. Kind of a recap of where we're at with Spider-Man, where we pick up with this movie. And we'll take our commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to literally jump right into a full spoiler-based discussion. So we'll go around the room really quick and just get initial thoughts, non-spoilering, words. All right. And that's why I'm not going to go first. So I'm going to start with our guest, Sean. Sean.
Why do you have to put that pressure on me?
Because Ronnie was still giggling.
Yeah, but he's good at giggling.
He's good at giggling.
He's good at giggling.
So, Sean, initial thoughts.
Very good. I mean, again, I really can't say anything without spoiling the movie.
In the pantheon,
Spider-Man is in the movie.
In the pantheon of Spider-Man movies, where would you rate this?
Slightly behind Spider-Man 3.
Like what?
What?
I wish I could have captured your face on video right there.
I didn't even need to hear Rob on the microphone. I heard it from Florida. What?
Well, Spider-Man 3 is my favorite. Spider-Man 3 is my favorite. This is right behind it.
I'll actually.
All right. We need to discount him completely from this in terms of an opinion.
He's not allowed on the show anymore.
Okay.
No, seriously. Where if?
I mean, it's probably number 2.
Number 2. Wow. What is your number 1 Spider movie?
Probably still the original.
The original.
Tobey Maguire. Again, just for nostalgia reasons.
That's fair. Ronnie.
Kind of in the same boat as Sean, where this movie
Spider-Man
has
3. I told you, man.
This movie you can't really talk about without spoiling, because there's so many pleasant surprises. Everything in this movie meant something, so it's hard to spoil. But it was a fantastic movie. As far as overall, this is probably my number 1 Spider-Man movie.
And that's fair.
That or Spider-Man 2.
Fair. Rob?
Let's see. It's tough. I will say I just rewatched Spider-Man 2, and I didn't really realize how great it was. It was. That really is one of the best ones that are out there. The dynamic is so great between Spider-Man and Doc Ock, and it was neat to, that's not spoiling anything because Doc Ock has obviously been in the commercials. So it was neat to see it sort of as a continuation of that. I really enjoyed the film. I really and truly did. However, I think it's on par with the other 2 Spider-Man in this trilogy, but I still think it's behind Into the Spider-Verse.
That's fair. Into the Spider-Verse is kind of its own like its own franchise at this point.
And once we get more into spoilers, I can say why I think Spider-Verse might be the better movie. But that's where it ranks for me.
So for me, we walked out of the film, and it's unique in that I had to nitpick to find things I didn't like. Like, I had to really nitpick. This movie was fantastic, and I think it was it is Tom Holland's best portrayal of Spider-Man. And that's not giving anything away. It's just like the journey that he goes through in this movie is the most mature, the most adult, and where we leave him at the end of the movie is going to really change the way that this Spider-Man interacts with the rest of the Marvel Universe. So, without spoiling anything, if you have seen any trailers, you have a general idea of how this movie is going to go. So, the general idea is it picks up right after Spider-Man Far From Home with Spider-Man's identity being outed to the world. So, basically
immediately after, too, like seconds after.
Yeah, so it literally hits the ground running hard and running fast. And suddenly we're back into this more familiar world where Spider-Man is considered more of a villain and an outlaw than anything else. So the trailers gave us a general idea that the movie was going to be about Peter approaching Doctor Strange to help use magic to fix it. And as per usual, it doesn't work. Now, initial thoughts when we first started seeing some of these other characters popping in. Who got you the most? These are just from the trailer, so this is not spoiling anything. They did character posters. They did a lot of... apparently, originally, they did not want to even tell people that they were doing this multiverse stuff and leave it to be a surprise for the theaters. I think...
That would have been impressive if they were able to keep that under wraps.
Yeah. It was.
No, but I'm just saying that if they...
It would have been,
that would have been hard to do.
It would have been almost impossible, especially this day and age. Like, even when Avengers Endgame was coming out, you could see a lot of footage of them, in the old suits, or like a lot of camera footage and stuff like that. Which villain in the trailers got you the most excited to see? Ronnie.
Can I say all of them?
No, just
okay.
one. Which one really was like, man?
That's a tough one. I would have to. I'm gonna go with Green Goblin. My second, 1B would be Electro.
That's fair. Yeah. I'll go next, just so everybody else has a second to think. Electro was actually my number one. To see a revamped Electro, and considering how poorly his character was handled in Amazing Spider-Man 2, to see him, and also a little bit more of the comic accurate stuff with the lightning turning into his traditional mask, I was super excited. And then obviously seeing Doc Ock and the "Hello Peter" line, just fantastic. Sean?
Probably for me would be Green Goblin, because and correct me if I'm wrong, you never actually saw him in the trailer. You see the explosive, you hear his laugh.
There is one shot of him on the glider coming over the bridge.
Okay. To me, that one I was more looking forward to, because it's Willem Dafoe, and anything Willem Dafoe does is fantastic, and I really want to know, did they virtually de-age him and Alfred Molina at all?
They did. Yeah.
Okay. Because if not, damn, they look pretty good for 20 years later.
Alfred Molina definitely.
Okay.
I don't know too much about Willem Dafoe.
All right.
But I know he came back under the condition that he was allowed to do his own stunts.
I read that. But yeah, for me, it would probably be Green Goblin. Now that you said it, because I forgot, because I didn't care for Amazing Spider-Man 2 at all as a movie, but Electro did get his, redo and stuff like that. I still wasn't too big on the character, but definitely Green Goblin was the one I was looking forward to the most.
Rob?
Yeah, I'm actually just echoing a lot of what you guys have said already. I think, Doc Ock's "Hello Peter" opening gave me chills, even though it's already in the trailers. But yeah, I think for me, Electro also, just because he was done, they did him so dirty in Amazing Spider-Man 2. He was such a poor portrayal, and I don't think that was up to him. I know the one I was least interested in seeing was definitely Dr. Kurt Connors as the Lizard. I thought that was oh, look, this lizard's over here. I thought they could have done a little bit better with that.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, but definitely those two.
All right, so going back, though, this movie had so much speculation and so much, things that we were expecting, and like just so many theories and this and that. Was anybody disappointed? Without spoiling anything, was anybody disappointed in something that wasn't in the movie that they were hoping was going to be in the movie? There is, again, without spoiling, you don't have to say something specific, but I know off the top of my head there is one moment that they could have done that they didn't, and we'll talk about it in spoilers. But does anybody else have...
I can go first because
Yeah.
I have to say I think there was absolutely nothing that I was like, oh, I was really hoping for this to happen, and it didn't. No, every surprise I was hoping for ended up panning out. So I was very content at the end of the film.
Ronnie, anything?
Nothing is sticking out right now to me that I was hoping to happen. Everything I expected happened, and then things I did not expect to happen happened. So I think overall, as far as like Easter eggs and stuff like that, this was right on point.
Sean?
I agree with that. I'm not thinking of anything that I was hoping for that didn't come. As Ronnie said, there were things in there that I didn't think were going to be there, but were. So as we get into the spoilers, something might pop in my head and I might remember something more. But for the most part, in terms of the things that everybody was questioning, everything turned out right. No issues.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to, do our commercial. We'll come back, and we are going to talk spoilers. So before we do that, I think it's safe to say that if you have not seen Spider-Man, go.
Why are you listening then?
Because this comes out on the Monday, so people could have downloaded it and started listening. But
And to get them hyped up to go see it.
Yeah, seriously, I think all of us can agree that it is in our top 3 Spider-Man movies. Which is a very subjective list, but I think Sean said it was his number 2. For me, it's arguably.
I'm just doing that to annoy you.
No, that's fine. You've been doing it for years. So for me, I also speak Sean, so I know when you're trying to just annoy me. But so for me, it's definitely my number 2 Spider-Man movie. Ronnie, I think you said also
this is like
1 or 2.
A 1A, 1B situation for me with Spider-Man 2.
And I think, Rob, you said the same thing with Spider-Verse, just kind of toppling it a little bit.
Yeah.
So we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, finally, after all the speculation, all the theories, all the fake trailer things, because there were fake trailer things.
Get
as
to
per
it
usual.
already. I want to know what happened.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back...
I can't believe that...
Today's episode is brought to you by Raise Energy Drinks from Rep Sports. Whether you're trying to crush your afternoon workout or just need a little extra pick-me-up, Raise Energy is just the boost that you're going to need. So if you go to repsports.com and any product that you order, enter the code MISFIT89 at checkout to receive 15% off. Anything that you guys buy from that store helps our network grow, and we fully appreciate everything you guys do. That's MISFIT89 at checkout, repsports.com. All right, we are back, and it is time. This is your last spoiler warning before we jump into spoilers, Spider-Man No Way Home. So if you have not watched the movie, turn us off right now because we're about to spoil it. In 3, 2, 1. Daredevil's in the movie.
Died.
No,
That was
I
loud.
actually did a real one. Sorry about that. Daredevil's in the movie.
Oh,
Technically, Matt Murdock's in the movie.
He's a very good lawyer. That was one of my favorite things ever. So
yes.
This movie was one of the worst kept secrets in history. We all knew that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to come back.
Right.
They were talking about Matt Murdock forever.
Yeah.
Kingpin just made his return on Hawkeye. So spoilers for Hawkeye. Sorry, guys.
I watched it. I'm good.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
God.
I did too.
But so everybody kind of knew that they were going with some of these things, and it really played out the way to be expected. The way we're going to do it is we're going to talk character by character. Instead of going through the entire plot and instead of doing all the plot points and stuff like that, we're literally just going to start with each character, where they are and where they end up by the end of the movie. So first and foremost, Tom Holland as Peter Parker, or Peter 1, a.k.a. Spider-Man. We're going to go around and really just kind of talk about Tom Holland has now had 5 Spider-Man or 6 Spider-Man appearances. He's had 3 solo movies, and he's had 3 roles in Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. So he is the Spider-Man with the most movie appearances at this point.
Yes.
I would argue that this is his best performance, second only to Avengers Endgame. I think Avengers. Well, scratch that. Originally it was Avengers Endgame for me, like that. Excuse me, Avengers Infinity War.
I was about to say,
Sorry,
yeah, I was
excuse
gonna
me.
say you can't beat the whole Mr.
sorry.
Mr. Stark. I don't feel so good.
Yeah, Avengers Infinity War was at a point my favorite performance of his, and then this movie I think may be my favorite performance by Tom Holland.
1,000%.
He brings an emotional level to it, a growth to it, because the whole point of these movies was to watch Spider-Man grow up. And by the end of this movie, he is now where Peter Parker always is supposed to be, making his own suits, living in a crappy one-bedroom apartment.
Yep.
So, who wants to go? Thoughts on Tom Holland's Spider-Man in this?
Like you nailed it on the head. I think this was by far the best performance of his. And dare I say, the best performance out of all three actors who have portrayed him, in the movies. I think he did the best job. He looks the part age-wise, even though he's 25, 26, playing a high schooler, but he still looks like a high schooler, unlike the other two did.
Yeah.
So I think he just looks the part. The range and the growth that you see him, develop in this movie, going from his previous 5 movies that he's been in, right, to now, and then even throughout the movie, the growth that you see him have is great. The one thing I'm curious to see, this is kind of getting slightly ahead of ourselves, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Are we going to think that the symbiote is going to take over his body?
I have a problem with the Venom stuff. That was the thing that I was alluding to.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that when we get to the cameo,
Okay.
kind of the cameos of it.
All right.
But Sean, thoughts on Tom Holland in this movie?
I mean, as you said, this is his 6th appearance as the character. I mean, I would hope by now he, obviously progressed in the role, which I feel like he did. I also feel like the weaknesses of the first 2 were definitely thought out before this interpretation of Spider-Man really got off the ground. So I really feel they were able to work on that and get away from what, the other 2 couldn't do. So that's why I feel like he has done such a good job with this character. He's also the only one, as Ronnie said, actually still looks like the character like a teenager. I mean, he literally looks the part.
Can we all just say he got even more ripped for this? Like he was looking even more jacked.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Rob, thoughts on Tom Holland Spider-Man here?
I will say there were a few moments where I'm like, all right, this guy looks like he's almost 30. There were a few times when I'm like, oh yeah, he's getting a little too old for this. He is still a great actor and he's still really, really strong with this role. I think the script does him a lot of good opportunities to really develop as an actor. Like I love the part where, he tries to change time in everyone's memory when Doctor Strange says, well, did you try talking to the MIT person? And that's just such a great high school senior moment for him to lean into and saying, oh, I never really thought about doing that. So I think he's given a lot of good opportunities to grow as an actor. And the moments where he is sort of pining away for MJ and unbeknownst to her, I won't spoil that just yet. But I think it shows a depth for him as an actor. And I really like how he's grown into this role. I think he started out as sort of the scrappy kid from Queens, and now he's more adult. Which is a great transformation for him.
And at the end of the movie, we see him at a different place. First, he makes the decision to not tell MJ and Ned who he is. Mm-hmm. It's a comic book movie, so you really have to take a step back and be and ignore the logistics. But here we are talking about this comic book movie and logistics. So I found it interesting that at the end of the movie, he makes the decision not only to have everybody forget who he was, but also live kind of as Peter. He's much more Peter Parker from the comics at the end of the movie, and I'm really excited to see him. He doesn't have to go to MIT. He could still go to Empire State University like he does in the comics and do all that stuff. He could still get a job, because that was my fear. How are we going to fix this? Is it going to have just a bow on the end of it and a happy ending for everybody? But instead, this movie tackles huge issues. and we find Peter at the end of it. Now he's actually Peter Parker. He's no Stark tech, no fancy spider suits. Just he's making his own and doing that stuff. And I'm really excited to see where we go with him. Going down.
Honestly, this is it's an origin. It's a 3-film origin story for Peter Parker. Becoming who he becomes at the end, and now he's whereas a lot of other movies would have taken an origin story and wrapped it up into just one movie. This one took a trilogy, and now I feel like we're entering a new phase for that character, which is neat.
And it's a very familiar face, too, which makes it even better, because there was a lot of complaints about Peter Parker basically being Iron Man Jr.
Yeah.
So I'm also very excited to see how he's going to interact with the rest of the Avengers, because they remember Spider-Man, but they don't remember Peter Parker. So, like, when they think of the Battle of Avengers Endgame, do they just see Spider-Man with his mask on in their memories from now on? So it's going to lead to some very interesting dynamics. But I feel like Marvel's just going to kind of skim over it like, oh, that's Spider-Man. I know Spider-Man.
A spell will fix it or something.
Yeah, something like that. But moving down the cast list, I'm just going to go in the order that they have it. Zendaya as Michelle MJ Jones Watson, because now she's...
Without the Watson.
MJ was the biggest... MacGuffin they tried to deny for the entire... in Spider-Man Homecoming, it's like, no, she's not playing MJ. Her name's Michelle Jones. That's totally... Shut up. Just shut up.
Yeah, right?
So in this movie, we finally... this was her time to shine in these movies. She was always good in the other two, but I feel like she really stole the show.
They gave her a lot more in this one.
Yes.
The scene of her and Aunt May both yelling, "Don't talk until you have a lawyer," was hilarious. That was so just perfect for them. And I really just enjoyed Zendaya, and I think that they're going to get to a point where because they don't really do the acting stuff with her, so I could have seen them having her take on Mary Jane as her stage name and taking back, because now we know she is Michelle Jones Watson. So a lot of questions on that, but Zendaya, Sean, thoughts on MJ in this movie?
Just like I said before, I feel like she really had a lot more to do. She was much more involved in the story this one to go. She had some stuff in the previous one where you get her finding out he's Spider-Man, which was good. But I just thought it worked this one. She had a lot more good stuff to do.
Ronald?
Yeah, no, I agree. She actually had to do some acting in this one, and actually say words, unlike the other one where she was kind of just there to be the eye candy almost. So I really did enjoy, her character in this movie, even though she is MJ without being MJ, and the nice little moment of, the Gwen Stacy throwback homage right there.
Oh, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that, because that was one of my favorite moments. Rob, thoughts on MJ?
It's nice to see her doing some things, because Zendaya is a really great actress. She's done Euphoria. She did a film recently called Malcolm and Marie. She's done a lot of great stuff. So it's wonderful to see her stretching herself a little bit as an actress. I thought it's nice too that she's not totally reactionary where she was in all the other movies, where she's now initiating plot devices. I had a question though. Is anywhere in the comics because this seems to be the route for just about everybody, that eventually they become some superhero. Does MJ ever become anything?
I don't think so. I'm sure there's an obscure comic where she does become some sort of superhero, but I don't think so.
There's no Spider MJ or anything like
there
that?
Might be, but nothing long term.
Okay, all right. She's I think she's doing. See, part of the problem is that MJ is written that way, maybe because that she's always sort of just the reactionary eye candy. So it's nice to see her becoming more than just that. Oh, and Dune. I forgot Ronnie mentioned that. Yeah, she's fantastic in Dune too. So she's a great actress. So it's nice to see her getting some actual things to do.
And also, at the end of the movie, we do see that she vaguely has some sort of connection to Peter, and she's wearing the Black Dahlia necklace from the first movie, or from the second movie. So there is some sort of part of her that still feels that connection. So I'm looking forward to if they bring back MJ and Ned in some capacity for the next movie. Where are we going to go with that sort of thing?
With Hobgoblin.
Yeah, well, let's talk. All right, so I was going to talk about Doctor Strange next, but let's talk about.
Imagine if they were just messing with him this whole time. They're actually in the next movie. They're like, "Nah, we're just kidding. We know who you are,
you silly goose." But we have Jacob Batalon as Ned. Ned has always been the fun, supporting side character, but now Ned knows magic.
Yes.
That was a very strange.
Now Ned knows magic.
Yes, that was a tough one. Yeah. Thoughts on Ned in this movie? Let's go with Ronnie first.
I did not like him as much as I did in the previous ones. I think part of that just had to do with the fact that me and I'm sure a lot of people were expecting Hobgoblin from him
In
at
some capacity,
point in this movie, and we didn't get it. So I think that might have to do with some of the letdown. Yes, he did have, his moments, like when they're at the school science lab or whatever, and he's talking with Tobey Maguire, and he was like, "Oh, do you ever have a best friend?" And he was like, "Yeah, until I had to kill him."
After he tried to kill me, or
yeah. And then like the rest of like the scene is just Ned being like, I'm gonna stay away from Peter,
because he talks to both of them. He talks to both Peters, and then he's like, "Oh man!" And he does do the great line where it's, "I would never turn evil and kill you with my newfound powers."
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's the one problem with Spider-Verse took Spider-Man from all different universes, but this one really just pulled from the movies. They could have had an opportunity to introduce, well, who's that guy? And it's Hobgoblin. And then at the end, a great reveal would have been that it was actually Ned.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been a very powerful moment, but it is what it is. Yeah. Sean,
so I don't know what's the background with Ned and Hobgoblin. I
Ned
nothing.
is Hobgoblin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he is one of several characters that took on the role of Hobgoblin in the comic books.
And Hobgoblin's never been done in a movie.
He has not been in live action.
Interesting.
So, what were your thoughts on Ned, though, Sean?
He he had that third wheel feel to him because, again, now that MJ is obviously in the know of everything, you could tell Ned felt.
He holds all their hands.
Yeah, there were some funny when they're on the school roof and they're having their moment, and Ned just shows up, and it's like
it's crazy down there.
Definitely the third wheel feel to him, but I did love the fact that this guy had the power of Doctor Strange for literally
this whole time,
half hour, and he's creating these like different portals.
But then he can't close them.
So there were some funny moments with him, but again, nothing too over the top or anything like that.
Rob, thoughts on Mr. Ned?
He was. I think if they just repeated a lot of the same shtick from the earlier films, I think it would have felt forced. So I think he does need to develop as a character because he was so much the comic relief in every time we see him. I'm still remembering back into Infinity War when Peter asks Ned for I need you to cause a distraction, and he just screams, "We're all gonna die," which is a great moment from Ned. But it's nice to see him developing past that character. But I wasn't. I guess I like the fact that he now knows magic and can do that, but I felt like as a character he didn't develop enough, and I would have liked to have seen him, faced with some sort of temptation or faced with, maybe coming across some Stark tech and pocketing it or something and being like, oh, that's going to turn into him, becoming Hobgoblin or something. I would have just liked to have had something other than him sitting there at the end at the counter on his phone texting with MJ. So, but yeah, he was good enough. I'm not disappointed. I just wish there was something, an additional layer.
Also, the interrogation scene in the very beginning, when he tells them everything. So basically, that was the best.
I'm like, shut up, Ned, shut up, Ned, shut up, Ned.
So going down, we have Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. He was a lot of fun in this movie. The trailers lied to us thoroughly. Oh, yeah. They made it seem like Doctor Strange was going to do this super forbidden spell that's never allowed to be done. Instead, it's their hangover spell. It's I did something silly last night spell. And apparently, he's not the Sorcerer Supreme anymore.
Yeah, that was a fun. That was a fun moment. Yeah, a little like, oh, you're not the. Oh, no, I would gone for 5 years.
And Wong's in charge. Good for Wong. Good for Wong. But so Doctor.
But wait a minute. If he's in charge, why is he doing underground battles then with Shang-Chi?
Because why not? He gets paid more.
Doesn't he have more important stuff to do than battle the Abomination?
Well, it does make sense, though, at the end when he approached Shang-Chi and was like, hey, Avengers stuff.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
But so one of the best set pieces, arguably, is the fight between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange.
Yes.
And also, they have such a great relationship in this because instead of like Spider-Man approaches him like he approaches all these other big heroes, like, "Sir, I need your help?" And he's like, "Don't call me sir." And that's like a good running motif where he does view Spider-Man as something of an equal because they went through some crap. He fought an alien in space.
Yeah, you went to space.
You went to space, but he's really good. I do kind of. Obviously, it's a Spider-Man movie, not a Spider-Man and Doctor Strange movie, but having him just disappear for most of it afterwards was kind of But any thoughts on Doctor Strange that we want to convey? Because I know everybody's waiting for us to get to the big stuff. Anything?
No, again, I think one of my favorite parts was when he does the what the heck? I forget what he calls it. When he makes Peter have his out-of-body experience.
Yes.
You know? That was a nice little like throwback right there, which we knew, because I was in a trailer or whatever. But
apparently about that scene, if you look, Spider-Man or Peter's spider sense is going off the whole time. That's why he can't grab the box from him. His body's just reacting because of the Peter tingle. But apparently, if you look at Peter, like his astral form, you could see the squiggly lines from the comics, and I didn't notice that. So I was like, it's the first time they've shown it in live action. The traditional little squigglies. But I did like that fight was just so visually pleasing, just so much fun. When he like opens up the portal, he shoots the web through it, and it catches him in the foot. He's like, "Wait, no!"
The just mirror dimension.
Doctor Strange has such a unique style to him, and it's just a lot of fun. But going down the list, there's two more that we want to talk about before we talk about the big ones. Right?
Hold on, I want to talk about Doctor Strange for a second.
Rob wants to talk about Doctor Strange for a second.
Yes. As much as I liked him in the first third of the movie, it was weird that he disappeared for so long. And I thought that was a mistake. I felt like we should have flashed back to Strange, is stuck in the Mirrorverse, going through something mental, something emotional, because I would have liked to have seen him develop some emotional and mental, have him have an arc. And he really didn't. Like, it was only at the end where they're like, no, Peter is trying it and it's working. And he's like, Like, that was his big arc, was that he realized that Peter could do this. And I would have liked to have seen something develop in terms of their relationship a little bit more. And, I'm thinking back to Spider-Verse, where everyone was such a big mentor to Miles Morales, whereas I think Doctor Strange might have fit that role, as some of the other people we're about to mention could have fit that role. So I would have liked to have seen that from Strange, a little bit of character development.
Very true. Very true. So we want to talk about Marissa Tomei as Aunt May.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I do think it was a missed opportunity that they didn't show her grave next to Ben Parker. They have not mentioned Uncle Ben at all. And I still say that that's one of the biggest mistakes of this franchise. Obviously, they wanted to stay away from it because we've seen it so many times. That's fine. But
is there a Ben?
There is a Ben, because Peter's...
Did she mention it?
They do mention in Homecoming the things that he says something about like what May's been going through since. They don't specifically say it, but also in Far From Home, his suitcase does say Ben Parker on it. It's Ben Parker's suitcase. So I do think it's a misstep that they never had Uncle Ben, but I'm fine with how they did it. And obviously she gets the line, with great power comes great responsibility, but her death was vicious and hurt. Like, they also MacGuffined us really bad, like, because she gets hit by the glider and she gets back up and she's walking around. We're like, oh, thank God. Yeah. Like, producer Melanie sitting next to me, and I like grabbed her hand when it happened.
But the minute she says that line, though, you knew she was dead.
Yeah.
That's just the kiss of death, that line.
Yep.
The shot of him catching the bomb was fantastic, though, of him trying to catch that thing.
Yes.
And for it to be Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, who we're going to talk about, it was a really powerful moment, and it really showed, because Peter loses it afterwards, and it's just such a great, like, we've seen Peter not wanting to be Spider-Man and just feeling this level of depression, but to see him have this kind of rage, we haven't seen it since Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
Yep.
But any other thoughts on Aunt May and R.I.P.?
Oh, just it's very sad to see his unusually attractive aunt go down like that. She is. I was just thrilled that she was part of the action. Like, when she had that chase scene just beforehand, it was like exciting to see. Like, oh, Marissa Tomei as an action star. That's really. I would see that movie, and I thought it was a fitting end for her. They sent her off very well, and it's Marissa Tomei is amazing. She can do no wrong.
Yeah. And then the last person before we talk about the big cast members, Happy Hogan makes his potentially last appearance.
Yeah.
It definitely seems like he's not going to be coming back, but
I gotta give it to him, Jon Favreau, that he's been willing to stick with this character, even though, even after he stopped directing the Marvel movies,
Right.
There you go.
He's got Star Wars to work on.
Seriously.
yeah. I would have been really okay if at the end of when they have their moment in the graveyard that he at least acknowledged, like, I know who you are. That would have been a really nice thing. And because, like, they had such a great relation, especially in the previous movie when he finally starts answering his phone calls and stuff like that. The scene of them on the plane and Far From Home is still one of my favorite interactions between the two of them. So I'm kind of upset that we're not going to get more Peter and Happy. I always thought they had a really fun dynamic.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else on Happy? Because I know we're all like sitting here like, come on now.
Let's go.
All right, we're going. So let's start off with our returning Spider-Men. We have the return of both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, even though Andrew Garfield has been saying for months that he's not in this movie. And Tobey Maguire's been like, yeah, I am. What are they going to do to me? But we have them both returning for this movie. Let's talk about Andrew Garfield first. I love how they make fun of his movies. I love how they make all in good fun too. And I love his moment of catching MJ is still like, it was emotional, it was powerful, like it was well acted.
I feel like more people were excited for that moment when it happened.
People cheered
than any other moment that happened, whether it was him coming on screen or Tobey or Murdoch. Like, I think that made fans more excited than actually seeing them.
When he jumps through that portal, our theater went nuts.
So did mine.
Yeah. And
same here.
And it's a great funny scene, like crawl on the wall. He's like, really crawl on the wall? Like his Spider-Man was arguably the funniest of the Spider-Men.
Yes.
And to have him come back and he's still like, you can tell he's still so passionate about the role and how much he enjoyed it. And then when they're all sitting around making fun of him, and he's like, they're like, I fought an alien in space. I fought a guy in a rhino suit, a Russian guy in a rhino costume. Like, it's just a lot of fun, and it just really worked for me. Sean, thoughts on Mr. Andrew Garfield?
Oh man, I thought he got his swan song.
Yeah,
that he never got. He didn't get a third movie. I don't know if a third movie was ever in plans for him, or Spider-Man 2 was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah,
and they just decided to cut it off. But first of all, this guy is a fantastic actor. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's done so many good movies before Spider-Man, since Spider-Man. For anyone out there, Tick, Tick, Boom, outstanding. I hope he wins the Oscar for it. So it was fun seeing him back in this character, and the scene when they are on top of the building after, and that's where Tom Holland Spider-Man is having his, woe is me moment. And the two of them are describing their, I lost my Uncle Ben, I lost Gwen. I mean, just, you could see the hurt in his face. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then as Ronnie said, the scene where he catches MJ, the theater was like, no! They see him jump and they're like, oh, she's dead. Yeah. and he saves her, and the tears in his eyes, he's just like, I did it. I couldn't do this the last time, and I just thought he brought
his A game.
He did.
Yeah.
He really did.
For only about 30
nothing
minutes.
against Tobey Maguire. I thought Tobey Maguire was good, but Tobey Maguire felt a little more, laid back.
I'm here for the paycheck.
Andrew put his all into the half hour he was on screen.
Yeah. Ronnie?
I thought Peter 3 was amazing.
Peter 3.
Peter 3.
Sean just nailed it on the head. Like, he was in this because he loved the character, and he just wanted to do it again. And again, like we've all iterated on, the catch of Gwen's, the non-catch of Gwen Stacy, but the catch of MJ is great. My only thing is, how come no one asked him who Gwen was?
We're going to talk about that.
Everyone was like, oh, Uncle Ben, and then he was like, Aunt May, and then they're like, well, who's Gwen? They're like, I have an MJ, I have an MJ, I have Uncle Ben, I have an Aunt May. Who's Gwen?
Well, I'm going to bring that up in when we talk about where the franchise is going to go, because I have some interesting thoughts, and it's one of the reasons why it's not a 5 movie. I'll be honest. Yeah, this is not a 5 movie. This is not a 5 movie for me.
Yeah.
No.
Rob, Andrew Garfield.
So the question is, what are my thoughts on Andrew Garfield?
Yes.
I loved his. I've always loved Andrew Garfield. I think his aw shucks kind of Spider-Man is just a fun Spider-Man to deal with. He's kind of this kind of goofy, almost approaching potheadish kind of Spider-Man because he's so like airy. I loved him. See. Here's the part that I have a problem with the movie, is that are we to assume that these are Spider-Men that are coming in currently at their current ages? Like so Andrew Garfield is like Spider-Man at like 30.
I would assume so. Like they're whatever the general time lapse.
Okay.
That was an interesting take for me, because as we get farther into it, we'll get into that. But I have a interesting question.
Yeah.
See, I don't know about that because
Tobey Maguire.
Everybody else, right? All the villains
were de-aged and.
Well,
no. They came
in when they were just about to die from Spider-Man.
Right.
So how come these Spider-Men were not, or I should say, Tobey Maguire wasn't in costume, at all. So he should have been. But also then you have Andrew Garfield in an alley. Like you would think they would be coming in at the same time that their villains were coming.
I think it's because they didn't die,
or at least the same. Yeah.
I think
it's also hard to. I mean, I guess you could digitally de-age Tobey Maguire, but he's very clearly in his 40s when we see him.
Yeah, which I thought would have been a good opportunity for them to change up how they looked, because one of my only gripes is the ending battle scene, as fantastic as it is, it's nighttime and it's dark. It's very hard to keep track of who's doing what. I think if they had done something like, imagine if like Andrew Garfield dropped down in like the black Spider-Man suit.
Yeah.
And Tobey Maguire dropped down. There was a lot of fan art of him in. There's a suit called the Last Stand suit, which is like basically like the Logan of Spider-Man comics, where he's wearing like this red leather jacket and Spider-Man mask, and it's really cool. But like they could have done a lot of stuff with that to make them all look different, and again, a brighter backdrop would have been probably helpful.
Yeah.
I loved Andrew Garfield's 30-something. Now that we've established that, I can comment on it. I love his 30-something Spider-Man, sort of like almost like that moment when, Tobey Maguire helps him crack his back a little bit. It's sort of like, I've been there. I understand it because I'm 10 years older than you. Let me help you with that. Like that was a neat little mentoring moment of, we're getting older with this and our bodies are giving out on us more. I just wish that and I guess this is more of a script thing than an Andrew Garfield thing. I would have liked to have seen like, all right, well, what's been happening then in the years since we've last seen you? How have you aged and developed as a Spider-Man? And I think that's why I think Spider-Verse is better, because is that Peter Parker that mentors Miles Morales?
It's Peter B. Parker.
Peter B. Parker. Like, I love that he has seen so much evil and awfulness in his life that he's become so jaded, and he's just like overweight. He's out of shape. Like I didn't see that with Andrew Garfield or with Tobey Maguire, and I would have loved to have seen like, how does being Spider-Man for this many years take its toll on you mentally and emotionally? Because like I think mentally and emotionally both of them were where we'd left them, but physically they were not.
I think that it was a better contrast between Andrew and Tobey in that regards, because Tobey Maguire's the one who's like, he's like, hey, and we'll talk about him in a second. He's like, hey, we made it work. Like, because Andrew Garfield, for me, when I was thinking about it, I was like, Tobey Maguire's the Spider-Man that's married with potential kids. Andrew Garfield is the Spider-Man that doesn't even want to date because of what happened with Gwen Stacy, and then you have this young Peter Parker who's trying to just graduate high school. That's kind of how, in my mind, I might put like a retcon or a continuity to it. So let's talk about Tobey Maguire then. Obviously he comes back, and I really do. It kind of does annoy me that he should have been the most confident Spider-Man, like the one that comes in. He's like, "Hey, I've been doing this for 30 plus years."
Yeah.
They don't really address that. But
and the fact that he sums up his entire relationship with MJ with the same word that he uses with Doc Ock and Spider-Man 2, he says it's complicated. Yeah. Really, even after 20 something years, you still haven't developed up much on that front.
Yeah.
Do you know where the back thing comes from?
Oh yeah, from when he hurt himself in real life, and then they threw it in the movie where he lands on the cars and he's like, "My back."
That they were poking fun at that yet again.
I
really?
do like that he is way more quippy. I like how Andrew Garfield Spider-Man does the woohoo, like as they jump, because he was always really fun with the web slinging and stuff like that. But to have Tobey Maguire actually like cracking jokes too was really good.
The web. The scene where he shoots the web out of his hand, and their reactions are priceless.
Oh, God.
that was fantastic.
How'd you do that?
That came out of you.
Is this coming out of you?
Do you make that
Coming
on
out
your
of
own?
other parts?
Oh God,
The three of them, I would love to see in a movie together because I just thought they
perfect.
worked so
Yeah.
well off each other. They really did.
You know what I would love? I would love to see a low or no stakes movie with the three of them.
Yes.
Where they weren't battling something. You know, they were just sort of like learning to figure out their life maybe as like three people in a New York City apartment or something.
it'd be a lot of fun.
That would be good.
All right, so Ronnie, thoughts on Tobey Maguire and his triumphant return?
Triumphant?
He's there.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, was I really excited to see him? Obviously. Would I have been upset based off of what he brought if he didn't come in? No, I wouldn't have been upset. To me, his only moment was when he got stabbed.
That was really funny, actually.
Yeah. You know, like,
I've been stabbed before.
yeah. Like, other than that, there was nothing really to him. Like,
Andrew Garfield got a little bit more than he did.
yeah.
I
But
feel
like,
like Garfield got more just because, again,
he never got it.
he never
Yeah,
got that third
right.
movie.
Yeah.
You know, Toby got all three movies. You know,
He had his story.
he had his story.
Any other thoughts on Tobey Maguire as
He had that scene, of course, where Tom Holland is literally beating Willem Dafoe to death, and Peter Parker.
we're going to talk about that,
where
yep.
Tobey Maguire steps in, he just gives him that look, that Tobey Maguire Spider-Man look, which you saw in his movies, and you're like, oh, okay. And then he gets stabbed, and I thought that was very like kind of. I was really like, wow, they're going to kill him off.
I thought it would have been a ballsy
Yeah.
move.
And
Oh, yeah.
and it just kind of was like, oh no, I've been stabbed before, and I'm like, wow, that was a really meaningful scene, and it just kind of went nowhere. And then Andrew Garfield is holding him up, and he goes, "You're in a lot of pain, aren't you?" Yes.
Yes. Any other thoughts on Tobey Maguire?
I didn't really realize until he came onto screen that it was like, wow, it's been a long time since we've seen Tobey Maguire in anything. I'm just looking
Yeah,
up what he's done last. And
hasn't
like
done-
The Great Gatsby was like one of his last things that he's really done anything that we all know of. And then he's done some narrative work, but it was really great seeing him. I don't know if I have too many complaints. Again, I think you explained that well. I forget who it was who said, Andrew Garfield didn't have his moment. Tobey Maguire did. So he had so much already in the can. I don't think we needed to see too much from him. I just, again, would have liked to have seen, like, what does being Spider-Man for all these years do to someone? And I just would have liked to have heard like, MJ and I tried marriage, it didn't work out, just hear a little bit more about what he's been up to.
Mm-hmm. So that's it for the Spider-Men. Let's talk about the returning villains. We'll get the two that barely have anything to do out of the way. We have Dr. Kirk Connors. How do you say his name? Right?
Risey Fonz.
Risey Fonz.
Is that right?
Him and Sandman really get the short shaft, or the shaft in this.
Short stick.
Short stick.
Short end of the stick.
I'm tired. All right, but they are definitely the
short
ones.
Shrift.
Sandman comes in and he has a great moment of trying to help Spider-Man because let's not forget at the end of Spider-Man 3, that's where he's at.
Yeah.
Him and Spider-Man come to a mutual.
But that was a little weird to me because yes, they end on good terms of Spider-Man 3, but I didn't get the feeling that he wanted to help him. Like,
Yeah.
he comes in and he's like, Peter, I'm here to help you. Then it's like, you're not Peter, you're me. Like,
Which also makes me
he had
think.
this like dumb, strong dumb guy feel to him in this movie. It just didn't
But it also makes me
do him any
think
justice.
some things have had to have happened to him since because he doesn't die fighting Spider-Man.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
he was one of the only villains that doesn't die.
Yeah.
Kirk Connors.
Technically, the lizard dies.
The lizard died.
Yeah.
But he turns back into Kirk
But
Connors. So
I was kind of surprised they actually even brought Sandman into the movie. I was kind of shocked they did that.
Yeah.
I have to admit.
So him and the lizard really get the. You could also definitely tell that they just needed them for one day of filming.
Yeah.
Because
Probably.
even the shot of Flint Marko in the Statue of Liberty literally looks like he was just standing on a green screen.
And another thing they did that they didn't do in Spider-Man 3, it's like he's only in sand form.
The whole time.
And I'm like, did Thomas Hayden Church just not want to be on screen? It's not like he's doing anything right now.
I definitely think it's just, it could have been COVID procedures. It could have been a trillion other reasons. But
I chalked it up to just the fact that Spider-Man 3 is just not a strong film. And so, like, the villains aren't very well introduced and developed in there. So I think they did the best they could with them here. Because, Flint Marko, his main, motivation is his daughter. The other one, I don't know. I don't even remember what his main motivation was.
The lizard? He wanted to turn everybody into lizard people.
Yeah.
Why?
Because he thought it was the next stage of human evolution after he experimented on himself and regrew his arm.
Yeah, because of the regeneration that they had.
See, this is also a problem I had with the Sinister Five or whatever they are, is that they all had varied motivations, and some were noble and some were not. Like some were just wanted chaos and just destroy everything. Some wanted to evolve. Some wanted to just get back to their daughter. And to see all of them fighting the Spider-Men, I'll go with it. Don't get me wrong, I loved it, but it's just, if you think about it too much, it doesn't start to make sense.
It didn't make sense for Sandman to team up with them at the end.
Exactly.
But
like when he joins them in that scene where, like, it's like, oh, something's not right here, but I'm gonna go with the bad guys.
It may be just because he knew he needed to get the box back.
He just wanted to go home.
Yeah,
he had no other. His only motive was, I just want to go home.
If they had introduced an alternate version of his daughter in this world who's not sick and who is healthy, I think maybe that would have been a better indication for him to stay, but they just didn't have time.
I think they missed out. They should have gotten Topher Grace to come back as Eddie Brock.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
Just saying. If you give us Sandman, I would have taken Topher Grace first.
What are you talking about? Topher Grace was never in it. It was always Tom Hardy. You're remembering it wrong.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that at the end. But any other thoughts on Sandman and the Lizard? Really, not much to say. They're there.
No.
Lizard, the Lizard look better?
The Lizard did look a lot better.
Yeah, they definitely went back and redid the character look, especially for those two movies.
Yeah.
But again, you're right. They were just there to be there.
They're there to be there.
I do want to point out that we were all wrong with the trailer, that we thought someone was punching Lizard in the face.
He got kicked.
No.
Yeah,
he got kicked
right in the face. All right, so we have Jamie Foxx returning as Max Dillon / Electro. They did a much better job.
Mm-hmm.
Best upgrade.
I like how they actually make fun of it too. He's like, I got my body back. And why are you just standing there like you don't know that I'm naked right now? Like, they do a lot of fun stuff with him. He's definitely the one that kind of convinces the villains to do the villain, because he's in this brand new world with all this, and it makes sense. Stop. But
he contributes nothing to the show.
Yeah, just musical notes and one-liners.
Yep.
But in all honesty, like, it makes sense. Like, there's an arc reactor in Happy's, and he's like, that's something we don't have in my world. What else don't? And we'll make fun of the Venom stuff at the end, but like when Venom's like listing all the things in this world, he's like, it's a flying guy in a tin suit and a giant
purple guy with stones.
Yeah. Like, it makes sense for Max Dillon, who's been consumed by power and wants to be more powerful. And, when he sees his opportunity, like, he's like, everything's better for me here. Why wouldn't I want to stay? Why would I want to go back to my world? So I think he, in terms of villain motivations, made the most sense. Anybody else want to share their thoughts about Electro?
Again,
I thought he was the best one there. I think, well, first of all, it's, Academy Award winner Jamie Foxx. And he developed it well beyond just the two dimensions that I think he originally had. Because I like the idea that going back, he doesn't want to go back because he didn't like who he was when he started. And this is like his best version of himself. So it was neat. I think they should have gone. You mentioned the arc reactor in there. I think that could have been more of a MacGuffin for it, because it was a little unclear, like, what these guys were trying to do other than just not go back. Like, if they had maybe developed some plan beyond it and had been using Stark technology a little bit more, that could have been neat. But I think he was the best of the group there.
Ronnie?
I was just saying, he had by far the best upgrade as far, overall, whether it's the looks or the writing for him. I'm just curious, if he doesn't know what an arc reactor is, does that mean there's no Stark Industries in that world?
Well, apparently there's no Norman Osborn in this one, which really bothers me. So let's, unless anybody else has something to say about Electro.
No.
Norman Osborn, Willem Dafoe returning, and man, it's like no time has passed. He was arguably my favorite villain in this.
Yes.
There's nothing better than Peter bursting into feast, thinking that his aunt is about to be, like, let's think about the first Spider-Man movie. He blows up Aunt May's house.
Yeah.
Like, he goes flying in there, and you just see Norman Osborn having donuts like a crazy homeless guy. It was so interesting to see what could have happened with Norman Osborn. I am heartbroken that they do not have a Norman Osborn, or at least not yet. They always could change it, but the fact that
It's
there's
just he doesn't know a Norman Osborn. There could be a Norman Osborn out there.
but Norman Osborn also says that there's no Oscorp.
Yeah.
But 20 years ago, if someone asked you, hey, don't you know Elon Musk? And we've been like, no, that's not. There's no one named that. It just hasn't happened.
I don't know. Like, for me, and we're going to talk at the very ends, kind of where the franchise is going to go. I do have a very big gripe about Peter Parker now knows every single one of his greatest villains. What's going to happen when he goes to college and Dr. Kurt Connors is teaching biology there? He's be like, uh-oh. Like, I don't know. They could do a lot of work with him trying to save those people beforehand and then making them into villains. Like, they could play around with that, but for me, it's still like a point.
Well, I mean, maybe it's somebody different because, just like with the multiverse, there's different, variations of the
absolutely,
character.
yeah.
In this world,
not all the Peters look the same.
They're, a bad guy, but in this world, they're actually the nicest person ever, so.
I think they could play around a lot with Spider-Man making his own villains, because that's always the superhero debate. Do the villains make the hero or the hero make the villain?
Plus, we still have plenty of other ones. Still got Kraven the Hunter.
Kraven the Hunter's up next. Yeah, I'm psyched for that.
Vulture is still out there.
Vulture's still out there. Morbius, Scorpion. Yeah. But I will say that the fights between Peter Parker, or Tom Holland's Peter Parker, and Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin were fantastic.
Yes. And that's Willem Dafoe, man.
Yeah, the scene of them just pushing each other basically through the floor of these high
rises, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Man, and then the fight of them, like, it's brutal, it's vicious, it is like, we forget how strong the Green Goblin actually was in the first movie. I think he's a little bit stronger in this one.
Yeah.
But that might just be...
I just love that scene on the bridge where you see the explosive coming and you just hear that laugh.
Yeah.
That Willem Dafoe defined that character, and that's, I'm interested to see if they do bring Green Goblin into the Tom Holland franchise, where they'll go actor-wise with that character, because it's like kind of like the Joker. It's big shoes to fill.
Yes.
Better laugh, Joker or Green Goblin?
Joker.
Which Joker?
Joker.
Which one?
Any of them.
I don't know. That's a tough one. Heath Ledger's Joker is still probably the superior laugh.
I still think Heath Ledger and Jack Nicholson's laugh is, those are the
Rob's got a thinking face on.
Mark Hamill, maybe?
That's true.
That's fair, yeah.
That's true.
But then you get like your Jared Leto and your Joaquin Phoenix, and you're like,
yeah.
I'm good.
But if they do bring in Norman Osborn again, and like Peter is like, oh crap, that's Norman Osborn, but I just made best friend, because he doesn't know Harry Osborn. Right. So like they could play around with it, and they could do their MacGuffins and stuff like that. Like the Green Goblin appears in the city, and Peter's like, it's Norman Osborn, but Norman in Spectacular Spider-Man, he actually frames his son.
Yeah.
Spider-Man like goes to confront Norman Osborn, and it's Harry underneath the mask, and Harry doesn't even know what's going on. So they could do a lot of fun stuff with it. So, but he steals the show, and he is the real villain of this movie. And if anybody's going to be the real villain of this movie, it should have been him. And
I love it when his spider sense is going off, and you're like, "Where is this going?"
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he just shoots the web at Willem Dafoe, and you're like, "What?"
Yeah. Yep. Oh, it was great.
Because you think it's Electro, because he's been showing the most.
And Electro even says, "Why are you looking at me like that?"
Yeah, and then just you could see the inner Goblin coming out, and so good.
And his costume upgrade was fantastic. When they give him like the hood, and he's added things onto his costume, he looks great.
And they big move by destroying the mask at the beginning of the movie, and then at the end it's just kind of him with like a hood and like goggles, and I'm like, okay, I like it. It's not cartoonish, but it looked good.
Rob, any thoughts?
Yeah, and I want to sort of get some feedback from you guys on this and see what your thought is. And I might be more okay with this over time, but here's what I'm thinking. When Green Goblin shows up and he has his... All right, I think we can all agree that the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy is very comic bookish. The Tom Holland ones are not very comic bookish. They're very grounded in this MCU. So to see a comic bookish villain coming into the grounded MCU tonally was a little jarring for me because, and I don't know how to solve this because I think, Willem Dafoe did exactly what he should be doing. I think Tom Holland did exactly what he should be doing. But the filmmakers mashing them up together tonally just seemed strange because it was these two tones coming at one another that didn't really seem to mesh. What did you guys think about that?
Because it was anti-Marvel. Is that why? Because Marvel is so like rainbows and sunshine, while the Green Goblin is like the complete opposite of that.
No, no, not necessarily. But the idea that Green Goblin is such an over-the-top villain. Whereas, like Vulture and who was in the second? Oh, Mysterio. Those weren't over the top villains. They were very much, grounded in sort of a technology. Jake Gyllenhaal's and Michael Keaton's characters were grounded in reality. Whereas Willem Dafoe's character is so over the top that you would never run into somebody like that in real life, which is fine because that works for that universe.
It's kind of like
into this universe.
I get what you're saying, Rob. It'd be like if the Jack Nicholson Joker showed up in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, it just.
I get what you're saying. Even when Green Goblin first pops down, that's a completely CGI Green Goblin. It's not him in the original costume or anything like that. So I get what you're saying. I think just over time it will kind of.
It'll blend in my brain for me.
Yeah, I look at characters like Whiplash from Iron Man 2, who's very comic book over the top ish,
right?
Or even like Abomination, who. They had to redo in their comic book interpretation, and sometimes it is jarring. So I can get that. I can agree. But for me, then the next villain, I don't know. I'm very excited. I want to hear Sean's thoughts because I know he's a big Spider-Man 2 kind of guy. Doc Ock, Alfred Molina's return. Sean.
I love Alfred Molina. I think he's a fantastic actor, and I was very happy to see him back in this. You kind of get the sense he is the one that doesn't want to be evil. And I think Peter Parker gets that fairly quickly. And just, he didn't have much to do except for that opening fight scene, which was fun to watch. I enjoyed that, and I thought it looked really good. But then after that, they cure him, and then he has this moment at the end, which I thought he was going to get killed at. I really did.
Yeah.
I was expecting him to sacrifice himself in a way, but I thought him and Tobey Maguire was good. But I loved that Tom Holland's the suit technology takes over.
Oh, it was so funny.
That was just such the times, because obviously that didn't happen, that didn't exist back in the time of Spider-Man 2. So his reaction to that was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Why can't I do that? Was fun.
It's also interesting because he is a villain that the way that the dialogue goes and the way that they explain it, he is technically there right after he has Spider-Man by the throat.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man convinces him. So it's almost like
he doesn't remember that.
He doesn't remember right before taking control of the tentacles.
Yeah.
So I thought that was also really interesting that's the point that they pulled him from. And it makes sense,
But that's the point they pulled all of them from. All of them were being pulled from the moment that they died, which I thought was an interesting idea. I don't know how I feel about it.
Not all of them, I guess, because basically Doctor Strange says that they are all destined to die fighting Spider-Man.
But they all have their moment where they're like, I was doing this, and then
I don't remember what happened. But for Doc Ock, it's not right. It's not him pulling the machine into the water.
That's what I'm saying.
So he's the only one.
So
really.
I'm curious where Green Goblin got pulled from right before he gets stabbed by the glider. And,
yeah. All right. Going on that thought then, because remember, everyone that was being pulled there were people who knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Good point.
Where was Norman Osborn? Or Harry Osborn, I mean.
We don't talk about James Franco anymore because he's been canceled.
He's canceled.
Well, there was a running theory that he would pop up because there was the shot of Willem Dafoe in his new Goblin attire, and I know we speculated about it. If it was,
they should have brought in the Harry Osborn from the Garfield.
Dane DeHaan's character.
That would have been actually really cool. But
I mean, don't get me wrong. I no way want to see James Franco at all anymore in anything. So I was pleased not to see him. But there is some logic issues there with where's Dane DeHaan? I guess there were other people coming through at the end there.
Which is speaking of that is another missed opportunity in this film. you could have shown anyone there. You could have shown that would have been your time for fun cameos, like your real fun cameos. Like imagine Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen. Can you imagine Andrew Garfield seeing that? Like he would have lost it.
Yeah.
The Rhino, Kraven the Hunter, I think is one of them. Topher Grace's Venom. Like they missed an opportunity, I think, with that. With just showing.
Sorry, yeah.
No, with just showing like the silhouettes.
Well,
I could have sworn that I saw
Rhino
a
was
Rhino
up there.
silhouette.
Rhino,
Oh, you saw it too.
Rhino and Scorpion.
Rhino
Okay,
and
I saw
Scorpion.
a Rhino
I did see
outline,
Scorpion.
yes.
I remember seeing Scorpion.
Apparently,
outline.
one was supposed to be Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, like, so let's then talk about the end of this movie and one of my biggest complaints. They brought Venom in for a cameo at the end. That was one of the worst things they could have possibly done. Had they brought in Topher Grace as Venom, it would have justified. Imagine having those two Venom fight on scene. Like, imagine that at the end. Or bring in another version of Carnage. And Venom shows up like, I knew that there was another symbiote here. Like, I could sense it, and that's why I'm here. Oh, but then to just have him zap back, I would have much rather been happier if he had just been stuck there.
Yeah.
Well, you know how much I hate Venom, so I was happy to see him disappear again.
But they leave the trace of the symbiote behind, so
yeah.
at first I was still really mad, but then I was like, no, if there's a piece of the symbiote on this Earth, I would be okay if they found a way to get Venom back there to get it.
Yeah.
Like he's like,
or they just create their own Venom in this universe.
but would they have two separate Eddie Brocks then? Like it leaves
if
some more.
if Venom is the next, if they want Venom to be in the next Spider-Man, but maybe they don't, and maybe I don't know how many more movies Tom Hardy wants to be involved with.
I'm telling you right now, that symbiote's going to take over Tom Holland. Then that's when you get Venom / Tom Hardy, right, to come back to this
to get the piece
verse,
of the symbiote
to
that's
get
missing.
that piece
Maybe.
that's in Tom Holland.
I don't think we've seen the end of Tom Hardy in the MCU. In fact, even if he came back as sort of a recurring joke that all of a sudden he'd just zap in and zap out of like future movies for even if it was for like 5 seconds, I think that would be, that's sort of like the new Stan Lee cameo then of seeing Tom Hardy pop up.
That would actually be really
once
funny.
in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if he's regulated to just a cosmic joke there, I think that would be great.
But it also didn't make sense though, based on the movie logic, for him to even be there.
Not, yes.
Like because
Because he didn't know who Peter Parker was.
Right.
So yeah, that was
It's very very.
it was a
interesting.
fun moment because just Tom Hardy again is just funny in that scene where he's just like
Yeah.
naming all these things that's going on, and he's like,
Explaining the MCU to your grandma.
And-
Yep.
and then again you see the symbiote left behind. So I'm like, okay, so maybe we won't get Tom Hardy, but you at least now can create your own Venom in this universe if that's what you want to do.
I think now would be the time to
or
do.
Carnage. That's how we get our Carnage redo because we were all very upset with the way they handled Carnage.
I think this is their chance also. I think this is the time to do a black-suited Spider-Man where Peter Parker's at his lowest right now.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he did the right thing and morally he's good and he's taking his GED, he's listening to the police scanner, he's making a brand new suit. Like he's re-inspired.
Which looks so good.
I wish we had gotten a better shot of that new suit because it's much brighter.
Yeah.
He also
very comic book accurate.
like it's weird to say he looks older.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of this movie, he looks like Peter Parker. I'm going to college, and in that new suit, he looks like Spider-Man.
I mean, in a span of 7 years, what this kid has been through. I mean, just think about what this character has been through. He also disappeared for 5 years. That's another thing. He's been to space.
Yeah, that's true.
He's, he's dealt with more than the other two Spider-Men combined.
yeah.
And, that just, I think that'll age anybody. So I'm really interested to see where he takes the character in the next
So let's discuss that. We'll wrap up the show with expectations, thoughts, theories, anything about where Spider-Man could possibly go.
Black suit and goth and on the street dancing.
Yes.
Yeah. Dun-dun-dun. I'm really upset they didn't even
Finger guns all the way
I'm really
down.
upset they didn't even mention it. They made
Yeah.
fun of it in
I
Spider-Verse,
know.
but
They made fun of Andrew Garfield stuff, but they didn't even go close to. They didn't.
No, they touched Tobey Maguire.
They Tobey Maguire was like, if you want me in this movie, I don't want to hear anything about Spider-Man 3.
so for me, I want to see. I'll give everybody a chance to put their thoughts together because I already know. I want to see Peter Parker in college working for get back to the roots of Spider-Man, which is really where they seem to be heading. Because the Stark Tech and all that extra stuff was a little too much sometimes. And to see Spider-Man just being Spider-Man and just swinging through the streets of New York during Christmas time too. I know Rob loves a good Christmas time.
I wonder if Hawkeye was happening at the same time.
That's
as
a
that.
big question.
I was wondering
It
that
is.
too.
It
yeah.
is.
Supposedly it is.
Because in one of the scenes in Spider-Man, you see posters
the billboard
for Rogers the Musical.
Yes,
Ooh,
that's true.
Very nice.
So for me, I would love to see him also interacting with the Avengers again, but they don't know who he is. They just know he's Spider-Man. Like, take out the dynamic of him just being a kid and them all kind of talking down to him, and just have him be Spider-Man, the respected hero, but also keep J. Jonah Jameson on dailybugle.net. We didn't even talk about him.
Yeah.
No, we didn't.
But he's just kind of there. He's just there to move the plot forward. But that's kind of what I want to see, and I want to see a little bit more of. Rob, I know your hand was kind of up via Zoom.
No, I was just leaning against the wall.
Okay. Well, Rob,
I'm curious.
curious.
Go to me anyway. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Oh, I'm just curious to see. We kind of hint on it with Hawkeye, but we have Daredevil in here, and in Hawkeye we got Kingpin. So I'm looking forward to maybe in the next movie we see Daredevil, not Matt Murdock in it. And maybe there's something going on with Kingpin, Hawkeye, and all that kind of stuff too.
It would be fun to see kind of these street level Avengers and Defenders teaming up.
I am just completely blown away, and when I point this out, I think you will be too, that they brought back Matt Murdock and Kingpin back into the MCU within 24 hours of each other.
They were planning it. It was so planned.
Yeah, I mean, they introduced Kingpin on Wednesday, and on Thursday they were introducing Matt Murdock. That is brilliant levels, synchronicity there. I couldn't believe they were able to pull that off.
Sean, thoughts on the future of Spider-Man?
The future of Spider-Man. I'm not sure. Like I'm really interested to see where they go, especially with Zendaya. Or is she not going to be in the next one? Are they going to totally go away from those two characters? How, if they will they fix that spell? But I'm more intrigued just more about the future of Doctor Strange, because obviously stay behind the credits.
The Multiverse of Madness
and
trailer.
The Multiverse of Madness trailer comes up. And,
Now Rob's got his hand up.
I have just a question. I'm sorry. The question is, who called that last week?
I don't remember.
I wasn't
think
here
it was
last
me.
week. So.
Was it somebody in the
said
studio?
On the last episode when we were talking, I said, wouldn't it be great if at the end of the credits they had a Doctor Strange 2 trailer? And then remember we talked about Back to the Future and how they did it then. Nailed it.
I don't remember that. But anyway.
I do. I was sitting on the couch. So there you go.
I don't know. I just still like the Parker Industries suit.
The Parker Industry suit is a good one.
Oh.
Any character...
What's that? I don't know what that is.
That's essentially what we kind of see in this. It's got that metallic-y kind of look to it, but the spider logo also kind of glows a little bit. So it looks very much what we kind of saw at the end.
Okay.
I'm also intrigued, what Avengers characters could you even have him team up with? I mean, I guess the new Captain America, but I mean, I'm interested to see where that goes, if they're gonna
if they bring
if he finds a good lawyer again, I think that there's your team up right there. Spider-Man.
That
and
would be
Daredevil.
cool.
Kate Bishop.
We'd watch that movie. Kate Bishop.
Okay, yeah.
It really depends on... We still don't have an Avengers movie on the docket. There is no talk about when the Avengers are going to reassemble. And if they do a new Avengers team, I think Spider-Man being on that team is perfect now, because he's not so much the... I'm just listening to what all the adults are saying. He's at a point, he took control of all 3 Spider-Men, and he's like, this is what we're going to do. That's a great scene, too. Yeah. The Avengers, great. What's that?
Are you a part of a band?
Yeah. Are you in a band? But in all honesty, this Spider-Man, if they redo any team-up movies with him, will be a much better dynamic than they would have been with the young Spider-Man. So to have him in Captain America would be great. To have him and Daredevil would be an amazing movie for them to do. I just don't know what the logistics are with that, with Disney Fox type stuff. Or not Disney Fox, Disney and Sony.
Oh, Sony, right.
Yeah, so...
Well, they already said there's a 4th coming.
They're making 3 more Spider-Man movies. Yeah. So bring it on.
I feel like Disney and Sony have gotten past their differences now, and now it's just game on for whatever they want to do. I mean...
Sony's making money. Why would they not be game on?
You would think. I mean, who knows?
I mean, this movie, just in its opening weekend, has made more than twice its budget.
Almost 3.
This is the. I mean, everyone's gonna say this is the breaker COVID movie, but this is breaking record. This is gonna break records probably.
Regardless, our theater was full.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see where this movie ends up.
I think Rob also froze. Rob, are you frozen?
Uh-oh.
We lost him.
That's okay.
But
So-
yeah. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, there we go. Rob's back. That was a close one. So the last thing we're going to talk about is any character we want to see in the near future in one of these movies. I will go first so everybody has a chance to think. I want to see Felicia Hardy as the Black Cat. I think now would be a really fun time to introduce the Black Cat into Spider-Man's life and that dynamic and that style. I would really enjoy it. Anybody else have a character that they want to see that we haven't seen yet?
Gwen Stacy would probably be,
Oh.
again, depending on Zendaya's, if she's going to stick with, what the plan is for the characters. If they, revamp and they can remember now, then whatever. But if they don't, then go in the
As long
Gwen
as they
Stacy
don't,
direction.
as long as they don't do like, hey, what's your name? Oh, my friends just call me G.
That really bugs you, doesn't it?
It does.
Why does that bug you so
It
much?
just does. But like,
I actually think that's clever.
if
when
they
do
if they
something
do,
like that.
No.
yeah,
I do.
if they do
Gwen.
Gwen Stacy, I would love for there to be a moment where Peter's like, "Oh shit, Gwen Stacy, I know that name."
Well, he actually just says Gwen. He never says Gwen Stacy.
Oh, true.
Yeah. I would like to
yeah.
see Spider-Pig.
Spider-Man,
I want to see the Nicolas Cage Spider-Man.
Spider-Man Noir,
Spider Noir. Yeah.
Or Miles Morales. I mean, bring Miles Morales. Do a team up with the two of them somehow.
Yeah.
There, I think
There
we're
was
gonna,
an homage to him too in this.
Yeah, there was.
With Jamie
Yeah.
Foxx.
Oh yeah, but also Miles Morales is an established character. He does exist in the Marvel universe. Donald Glover plays Aaron Davis, and he mentions that's his uncle.
That's right. From the
I would love to see they can introduce him as Prowler. I think that'd be a lot of fun. If you're going to introduce Miles Morales, and let's say Tom Holland really does only have 3 more Spider-Man movies left, have him introduce him in not the next one,
The second one.
the second one, and then have him pass the mantle.
I feel
on
like
his last
3 is
one.
plenty. I mean, that'll be 6 movies and 9 appearances. I mean, like, damn, I think the kid wants to
And
grow
apparently-
as an actor.
But also apparently he will be doing other
He's got-
crossover. He has mentioned other crossover stuff
And
too.
what's he got? He's got Uncharted coming out and
Yeah, I was
next
gonna say
month.
if Uncharted takes off, then we're really not gonna see much of him.
Yeah. Well, apparently Uncharted, he went to film this movie right after doing Uncharted and Cherry. So like,
And then he's got the Fred Astaire biopic that he's doing.
I'm psyched. Yeah.
Right. No.
Any other characters that we want to see in the near future?
If you want to bring Norman Osborn into it, I guess that's a safe bet. But if you want to not be safe, then you don't go characters we haven't seen yet in the movies.
All right. So I think that pretty much wraps us up. Star City ratings for Spider-Man No Way Home. I will go first. 4.5 out of 5. It is a near perfect movie for me. A couple of little gripes here and there, but otherwise it is, if you are a Spider-Man fan, it is your bread and butter. It is literally everything you could have hoped for. And it hit every expectation I think we had for this movie. We had your Daredevil cameo that we all wanted. You had your 3 Spider-Men teaming up. You had, all the things. So I will give it a 4.5 out of 5. Ronnie?
I agree. 4.5. Like you said, it's near perfect. There are little things here and there that could be changed and everything. I was pleasantly surprised by some of the stuff that we saw. The big one being Matt Murdock.
It
no one
sucked
was
too
really
because
expecting it. We wanted it, but we weren't really expecting it. We were like going in there. Everyone's like, we know we won't see it, and then it pops up and it's like, hold on. Wipe the eyes. Am I seeing what I'm seeing?
Well, it sucked in the theater because you saw his walking stick and everybody freaked out. We're like,
Yeah.
no, we need to hear it. We need to hear what he's going to say.
Yeah.
So,
So 4 or 5 for me.
Sean?
Oh, I was going to say, let Rob go first.
Rob, go first.
Sure. Yeah, I will say, okay, now I'm hedging my bets a little bit here. I am actually going to just go 4. I think it's going to grow in time, though, because I think right now I'm so focused on the some of the mistakes and some of the glaring omissions and some of the little leaps in continuity or logic that I'm not seeing it for the full picture. I know also this, and I don't know if you guys were doing this too. When I was in the theater and I was watching it, and I was like, oh, I remember that shot from the trailer. Oh, that means this one's coming up. Oh, there it is. Like I was so focused on that I was having trouble disengaging from the hype in the media and looking more at just the movie. So I think a second viewing is going to just improve it for me. But right now, just because I think there are some script issues. I think tonally it's a little little weavy here and there. I think that and this was my biggest problem, is that in watching it, felt like, yeah, this is great, but Spider-Verse already did this, didn't they? Like, I felt like they covered some of this ground beforehand and better. So if I can separate it from that, I think it'll definitely go up at least to 4.5. It's not a perfect movie, but I think it's still an absolute blast. It's a lot of fun. If you do go to see this, if you haven't seen it yet, you're going to have such a wonderful time with it. It's a great thrill ride.
Sean?
I'm going to go 4.5. I really enjoyed the movie, and I was really looking forward to the nostalgia feel of having the old characters come back. It was done in a really, really good way. You know, I was worried if it was going to be somewhat like, X-Men Days of Futures Past, which just absolutely destroyed that new X-Men, franchise for me. But this I thought was so much better. The villains were handled in a good way. The actors were fantastic. So I definitely go 4.5 on this one.
All right. General consensus then about 4.5, like a near perfect movie. So we had Fan Feedback Friday, and very simple. And since Spider-Man has hit theaters, who is your favorite TV or movie Spidey? Had some great answers. We had Spectacular Spider-Man, the 90s animated series, which, you can't beat that one. You had the original 60s cartoon where they point at each other.
Which we didn't get in this.
So
no, we did in the credits.
Not even that, but there is a scene, and this was pointed out to me today. They do an homage to it when Ned says Peter, and they all look up, and then they all point. This one,
like, who, me?
So but they also do point at each other. So that is our fun one. Let's see. Then we have that's me. Right. We have Spectacular Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Spooderman, Into the Spider-Verse, Spider Noir. The big Spider-Man and Into the Spider-Verse 2 trailer.
In the new trailer, yeah.
2099. And Tobey Maguire ends the original, also another one for the original trilogy, the first one. Very nice. That was fun. But that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you guys for joining us. This was a blast. It was a movie we were very excited for, and now one of our longest podcast episodes ever. So that's going to wrap.
Distance-wise, too.
Yes, distance-wise, too. It traveled the multiverse to get here. If you guys are listening to us on the go, make sure you find us on our website, themisfitfaction.com. You can also find our Facebook page, Multiverse Fan Cast, or Misfit Faction. You'll have links to all of our shows, not only the Multiverse Fan Cast, but also our brand new show, MF Uncensored. And if you want to hear more from Sean's Cinematic Adventures, you can also find us on YouTube, the Misfit Faction Media Network, and on Instagram, the Misfit Faction, if you guys are looking for more great content. As always, I am Paul.
I'm Ronnie.
Rob, you can go.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Sean.
And we will be back in a flash.
See ya.
Shiny smorgasbord to you.